I never thought this would happen to me. After 10 years of marriage, I found out my husband Arlo was cheating. The woman was his new assistant, a recent graduate full of youthful energy. My world shattered, but instead of confronting him, I chose a different path. A path of calculated revenge. The first hint was a new perfume I smelled on his shirt. It was a faint floral scent, nothing like the citrusy one I wore. Then came the late nights at the office, the hushed phone calls he'd take in the other room, and the way he'd suddenly become protective of his phone. Classic signs, right? I felt a cold knot in my stomach, a mix of heartbreak and a strange chilling calm. My initial impulse was to scream, to throw things, to demand answers. But then I looked at our life, the beautiful house we built together, the shared memories, the future we planned. Was I ready to let it all burn down in a blaze of anger? No, not yet. So, I started to gather evidence, quietly and methodically. I wasn't a spy, but I became one. I installed a recovery app on his phone under the guise of a new security update. It felt dirty, invasive, but I needed to know the truth. And the truth came flooding in. Text messages filled with heart emojis and pet names. Photos of them at cozy dinners holding hands. He was living a double life, and I was the unsuspecting wife at home. The pain was immense, but with each piece of evidence my resolve hardened. I wasn't going to be a victim. I was going to be the architect of his downfall. My plan began to take shape. I knew Arlo's biggest weakness wasn't another woman. It was his ego and his career. He was a senior partner at his firm, respected and admired. His professional image was everything to him. That was where I would strike. I started by being the perfect wife. I cooked his favorite meals, complimented him on his work, and listened patiently to his fabricated stories about stressful days at the office. I was sweet, supportive, and completely unsuspecting. The guilt was eating him alive. I could see it in his eyes. He'd look at me with a flicker of remorse before his phone would buzz and he'd be lost to her again. Meanwhile, I was playing the long game. I started accidentally bumping into his colleagues. I'd show up at his firm's charity gala, looking stunning and being utterly charming to his boss, Mr. Henderson. I'd talk about how proud I was of Arlo, how dedicated he was working such long hours. I planted the seeds of the perfect, supportive wife. They all saw a happy couple, a man who had it all. The next phase of my plan involved his finances. We had a joint account for household expenses, but he also had his own personal savings and investment accounts. I'd always handled our family's finances, so I had a good understanding of his portfolio. I started moving small, almost unnoticeable amounts of money from our joint account into a new account I'd opened in my name. It was the rainy day fund I was legally entitled to half of, but he wouldn't know it was disappearing. I also started making copies of all our financial documents, statements, tax returns, investment records, everything. The assistant, Sienna, was my next target. I did some research on her. Social media is a treasure trove of information. I discovered she wasn't just some innocent girl who fell for her boss. She had a history of this, a pattern of latching on to powerful men. She was ambitious, but her methods were questionable. This wasn't a love story, it was a career move for her. This knowledge erased any lingering sympathy I might have had. The time for subtlety was over. It was the week of the firm's annual review, the most important week of Arlo's professional year. He was up for a major promotion, one that would make him a named partner. His entire career had been leading up to this moment. The night before his final presentation, I prepared a special dinner. It was his absolute favorite, a meal I hadn't made in years. The mood was relaxed, almost nostalgic. "You seem happy," he said, looking at me across the table. "I am," I replied with a smile. "I'm just so proud of you, Arlo. All your hard work is about to pay off." He preened under the praise, completely oblivious. After dinner, as he was practicing his presentation in his study, I put the final piece of my plan into motion. I had compiled an email. It was a masterpiece, if I do say so myself. It contains screenshots of their explicit text messages, photos of their secret dates, and even a few audio clips of their late-night calls that my little phone app had so kindly recorded. It was a complete, undeniable record of their affair. The email was addressed to Mr. Henderson, the other senior partners, the entire HR department, and, for good measure, Sienna's parents, whose contact information I had managed to find. The subject line was simple: regarding Arlo's professional conduct. I attached a single document, a password-protected PDF. I walked into the study and handed Arlo a glass of water. "You'll be great tomorrow," I said, kissing him on the cheek. He smiled, his eyes shining with ambition. As I walked out, I hit send. The email was gone, but I wasn't finished. I went to our shared computer and opened the presentation he was so meticulously preparing for the next day. I deleted it. Then, I went a step further and wiped the backup from his cloud storage. It was all gone. The next morning, I woke up early and left. I went to a hotel I had pre-booked, turned off my phone, and ordered room service. I can only imagine the chaos that ensued. Arlo waking up to find his career-defining presentation gone. The frantic search, the rising panic, and then the notifications, the emails, the calls from his boss. The world he has so carefully constructed, crashing down around him. I heard later that he was fired on the spot. The firm couldn't risk the scandal, especially given their strict conduct policies. His affair wasn't just a personal failing. It was a professional liability. Mr. Henderson, the man I had charmed at the gala, was apparently disgusted. Sienna was also let go. Her reputation was ruined. A few days later, I finally turned my phone back on. It was flooded with missed calls and desperate texts from Arlo. I ignored them and called my lawyer. Armed with all the financial documents I had copied and the proof of his infidelity, the divorce was swift and decidedly in my favor. I got the house, a significant portion of his now dwindling assets, and my freedom. Some might say what I did was cruel, that I should have just left. But he didn't just break my heart. He disrespected our entire life together. He made a fool of me. My revenge wasn't about hate. It was about justice. It was about taking back my power and refusing to be a footnote in his story of betrayal. I walked away not as a broken woman, but as a queen who had calmly and deliberately checkmated the king. And let me tell you, that feeling was sweeter than any revenge I could have imagined. I'm starting a new chapter now, and this time, I'm the only author. Thank you for listening to my story. If you enjoyed it, please like this video and subscribe for more.